Are you ready for some smart, plain talk on politics, Israel, and the law? It's the Andrew Parker Show. Let's roll. Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Parker Show. Thank you once again for joining us. As you know, we talk politics, Israel, and the law every episode, and this is episode 480.
Wow.
Holy smokes! 480, and some of you are still listening. There are a handful that actually are still listening. Well, you're going to want to listen to this episode because it is a special one, a little bit off the path from what we normally do, but still within the framework of politics, Israel, and the law, as the law certainly is impacted by what our special guest has experienced in his lifetime, what he and I will talk about today, and what he has recently written about in his new book, The Flame Bucket, Adventures in Workplace Safety, by our guest on episode 480, my cousin, Marc Axelrod. Marc, great to see you. I always enjoy spending time with you. And if we have a little bit of levity here, I wouldn't be one bit surprised. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Congratulations on your 480th show.
Yes.
That's, I don't know anybody else that has their own show. So congratulations and respect and gratitude. So I'm so happy and proud that you can share some minutes with me.
Absolutely. Marc and I grew up, he's about 10 years my elder, as I was the youngest of all the cousins in our combined family. Is my aunt and uncle, his mother and father, I absolutely loved. Such wonderful people. Live out in Crazy Town in LA, and they've always taken a bit of that on. And Marc, who he's a senior citizen and still playing baseball regularly. Is the league the campaign started? Where you at?
I'm still playing baseball. My last tournament game, I was 3 for 3, and I'm also
is this underhand or softball?
No, it's hardball. It's regular baseball.
Fast pitch. It is regular fast pitch baseball.
Yes, it's regular.
He's still playing it. I just love it.
And I'm also assistant coach of our high school team. We were in the playoffs, so I'm the coach on the bus tomorrow.
I love it. And you don't have kids playing.
No, that was like 20 years ago. I was watching the team from the stands. Now I got the fungo bat in my hand.
I love it. Excellent. Well, that America's pastime, and nothing better. I should tell you, Marc, just a couple of episodes ago, we had our annual baseball show on the Andrew Parker Show with one-time Minnesota Twins owner Clark Griffith.
Wow.
And Calvin, as you know, Clark's father was the owner of the Minnesota Twins, brought them to the Twin Cities in 1961. And every year in April, first month of the season, we have a baseball show with Clark Griffith, and it's always quite interesting. And frankly, I think of you every year when, more often than that, certainly, but every year when baseball season rolls around, because I know how much you love it. What I didn't know a lot was what my cousin Marc did for a living. He was such an affable guy, he still is, and funny guy. Whenever we're together, we just have a wonderful time. But we don't talk shop all that much, and we never did. And Mark sent me, so I knew he was writing a book, but he sent me somewhat out of the blue his book, The Flame Bucket Adventures in Workplace Safety, which got me quite fully caught up on what Marc Axelrod has been up to. And boy, was it interesting. I read the book. I love the book. It is in large part because I love Mark, and it is written in his voice.
Right.
In such a beautiful, I could hear him, I could see him, you know, speaking these words. And it is plain. It is, I mean, a lot of complicated stuff in terms of safety issues in high tech and corporate America, including what I would call, I don't know, Mark, what would you call yourself? You had one chapter in here, Dr. Beryllium. Are you the beryllium Batman? Maybe that's the phrase, because beryllium, as I understand it, is a pretty dangerous element.
It's very dangerous. And when I started working at Rockwell International, I was the industrial hygienist. So that's one of the hats I was proud to wear in my employment life. And beryllium is very toxic, but it's one of those necessary elements. We used it at Rockwell International for guidance systems. So that was the heart and soul of the Peacekeeper missile, the Minuteman missile. These weapons were so accurate that they could fire them thousands of miles later, land in a 10-meter radius.
That's amazing.
So I was doing this beryllium work in the middle of the Cold War when we needed that technology. The world was competitive, and beryllium was also used at one of our sites in Rocky Flats as a key element of nuclear bombs, some of the most terrible weapons on Earth. But it was the Cold War. We needed this technology. And my job was to keep the machinists, the workers with their hands on the material safe.
That ain't no easy job, and it is no easy job when you think about the context in which you were delivering your great services to Rockwell, to Boeing, as well, ultimately the city of Beverly Hills in a different sort of way. But in all of these environments, you're dealing, well, setting aside the city, you're dealing with for-profit companies that are corporate in size and measure, as well, and trying to work these safety elements into that structure. Because, you know, you got all these people with all their different ideas and attitudes and interests, and you've got a profit motive, and you have safety. Those don't all go together, and you're at the linchpin of that kind of friction, I would call it.
There's always a tension between cost and safety. How safe do you want to make something? But the organization as a whole has got to be profitable. I mean, people have to feed their families. They go to work there, and but they want to come to work the next day.
Yeah.
So that was my job.
How do you? Yeah, I wanna back up a minute. I like starting in the middle and then getting back to the beginning. But I I did, before we go back to the beginning. How did you determine when enough is enough? In other words, I know in the practice of law, you can always rewrite a brief again and again to make it better, a little bit better. When did you determine when, okay, these protocols, this checklist is good enough to meet a safety standard? When you know that you could add on this, this, and this. on top of it.
So the whole key is acceptable risk. There's always risk, no matter what you're doing. And the key is to find what is acceptable. The reason I titled my book The Flame Bucket was a story from the Challenger. That's one of the worst accidents really in our history in the space age. The Challenger was the space shuttle that
Right. It
those
blew up
rocket
in space.
engineers knew that the O-ring that protects the rocket boosters and the whole vehicle itself didn't work well when it was cold. They knew that. They had the data, and that launch day was record cold temperatures. So they sent their data. It was a little ambiguous. That cold temperature is this was one off. It's never been reached before, and they were trying to influence the launch decision makers. Stop the launch, delay the launch. They couldn't do it, so they were just crossing their fingers. But the
Wow.
rocket engineers, they had a saying among themselves: if you really wanted to stop the launch, you have to lay down in the flame bucket. That's that concrete chute where all the flame and smoke comes pouring out during the launch. So yeah, you could go down and lay down there and stop the launch, but you could only do that once.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's a fabulous title. It is just, I love it. I tell people about the book all the time, and they say the flame bucket. I mean, what is he talking about? And then I describe this concrete collection area for all the flame and smoke when a rocket launches. Nobody knows it's called the flame bucket. It's fabulous. I love the title of the book. All right, so give our listeners a bit of background regarding you and how you got into this really quintessentially important area of our system.
Oh, so I went to UC Santa Barbara undergraduate, learned science and biology.
Wait, now when it comes to UC Santa Barbara, okay?
Yeah.
All right, now it's perfect for where you went to college because it just fits you perfectly. I love it. But my daughter got into UC Santa Barbara and she decided to go to the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. I mean, what I still can't get my arms around that.
No, UC Santa Barbara is right on the beach. It's beautiful.
A little different
What
than farm country.
beautiful blonde co-eds. In fact,
Yes,
as you know, I married one of them.
yes, indeed you did. Oh, how that happened. I mean, you punch well above your weight, Mark.
I do.
All right,
And then I
you,
graduate school at Cal State Northridge and learned about environmental occupational health. So I got out of, I graduated. I went
why do
to,
you think you got into that?
well, read the newspaper. Read
Yeah,
the newspaper every day. Something about safety. There's a pesticide. There's a pollution problem. There's a recall.
yeah.
It's you want to
A
protect
train goes
people.
off the rail and dumps ammonia all over it. Right.
No,
The
it's
hazmat
everywhere.
suits.
And it's in just, there's problems in our general, society and cities and environment, but in the workplace, it's very acute. That's where you're really rubbing up against these dangerous technologies, and people should go to work. They should feel safe. They should be healthy. And I thought that was something I could lend my talents to. I thought it was a good thing. And not only are you protecting people, you're helping that organization be successful.
Yeah. No, that makes full sense. So you come out of with your degree. Where do you go?
So I started at they did science for they wrote reports. It was a little place where I worked for nuclear engineers. So they weren't building very many nuclear plants in those days. So they went to work in safety and engineering and wrote reports, did some a little field work. And then I got a job at Rockwell International. And that was just such a great place to work because they had everything there. I was radiation safety officer. They had radar systems. They had lasers. They had machinery. They had construction activities. They had all sorts of chemicals there that needed to be handled safely. And also had to get a top secret clearance while I was working there because it was defense electronics. So
Right.
even though that wasn't I wasn't working on those systems directly. I was protecting the people and familiar with the programs, and it needed that type of government scrutiny so I could work there.
And that's where you started your work with beryllium.
Beryllium, they had the largest beryllium shop there west of the Mississippi. So you're working beryllium, you think of metal, you're working metals, you think sometimes it's coming off in a squirrel or you see turnings. If you've ever been in a metal shop before, beryllium, when you work it, it cracks, it becomes a dust, it becomes fine particles. If you breathe that, you get a disease in your lungs. It's called beryllium disease. It used to be called berylliosis. And there's it's progressive. There's no cure for it. And uh, my whole job was to make sure it didn't get into people's lungs. Control the exposure.
Listen, and in the book, The Flame Bucket, Adventures in Workplace Safety, there are a number of paragraphs or chapters that are discussing and describing the people Mark worked with, the process he went through in developing safety protocols, and the obstacles that he came up against. And these stories, you couldn't make them up. I mean, they're just unbelievable. But some very interesting people that you dealt with, dealing first at Rockwell. Why don't you describe a couple of them, maybe of your favorites and maybe of your least favorites?
Well, let me start off with my boss at that time was Tom Rodet. He was a chemical engineer. He came from the oil and gas refinery business. So he was, very into chemistry, but he was just a great mentor. And a lot of what we were doing at Rockwell at that time was just blue sky stuff. You know, if you can go back in history of microelectronics, of course, everybody, look, we're talking of these miracles of electronics. In the beginning, the miniaturization of electronics was all for the military. They wanted to fit all this stuff into a jet plane. They wanted to fit it all into a missile. And so that science of microelectronics, that's where I started to go to work. That's where they were exploring it and pioneering it. So a lot of the technology was new. There wasn't a, textbook. This is how you do it. This is how you protect people in doing it. And Tom Rodet took me under his wing and we would go meet with these PhDs and these guys they were so smart, but I think sometimes they would just look at the periodic chart and decide that the things they wanted to use were the most toxic things on the chart.
Of course.
So we'd have to start from scratch. What are you going to do? Is there heat? Is there pressure? Can it catch on fire? Can it explode? Do we, need a special lab structure? Do we need special warning systems? What kind of training is involved? Does maintenance have to be involved? Does facilities have to create a new ventilation system for your lab? So a lot of these technologies, we'd have to start at scratch, and then we'd build protocols. We'd build things that the scientists could agree on and make it as safe as possible. But also, what if something went wrong? Do we have an emergency plan? Do we have a warning system? Is there something the community needs to be involved in? Because there's hazardous materials that can escape. So there were all these different elements, and Tom just taught me how you just get everybody in the boat with you. You got to get everybody in the boat, understand what the hazards are, and really, when I started reading about safety theory, that was uh, very good, because really you can talk about safety in two words: anticipation and resilience. Anticipation and resilience. When you drive a car, you have to, make sure your car's working well. What's the weather like? The tires inflated? Is the gas tank full? Are you, driving defensively? You anticipate all the different things, but you also keep your seatbelt on in case the worst happens. You'll be protected in that secondary collision in the inside of your vehicle.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and the characters that Mark ended up and continued to have to deal with, both in a good way and a more difficult way, are riddled through from beginning to end. His book, the Flame Bucket. Mark, the chapter I don't know if it was my favorite, but it was very interesting, was exaggerate to fit the facts. I don't know if you remember that particular chapter, but what can you tell us about your decision to name that chapter that,
Uh-huh.
and what you included there?
So, one of my honors at Rockwell International was bought by Boeing. Boeing had a program where they would nominate people to be technical fellows. So these were people that weren't going up the management ladder, but were just heroes in their own technical field. And mine was safety. So my manager nominated me to be a technical fellow. It's a very involved process. You have to get a lot of information together for your application. And one of the things was proving your value. So it's hard to prove your value as a safety person. It's like, well, nobody died. Well, nothing blew up.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like nothing happened. So, but what do you have to show? So I would talk to some of these engineers. You go into their offices, they have, walls of patent awards, for all satellites, radars, all these systems. They invented it. But some of these technical fellows said, you know what? You just have to go back in your career, look what you worked on, look what was successful, try to find a dollar. How valuable was that to the company? What was your contribution to that, to the success of the company? And get all these facts together, and then exaggerate. You you know maybe you were part of a team, or you had some help, or this technology you brought was already developed someplace else, but you found it and you brought it to the company to help us be successful. So when he told me that, I sort of, something clicked, and I said, oh, now I know how to do this. And so I went back and, well, look at beryllium, doing that safely. How much money did the company make from all those programs? How
Yeah,
much did I contribute to that?
yeah.
Semiconductor safety. I had to practically invent semiconductor safety at our site, because there weren't things you could just buy from companies. There wasn't a market for that sort of thing in those days. And I put together my application, and I was one vote away from being a technical fellow, but just going through the process
Lo and
and being
behold,
able to look back and, provide value. They're always looking at safety as, oh, bad news, like cost. Oh, you're going to have to make me do that. People don't in the organization, they don't really realize the value we bring
yeah.
and
No,
how
it's
important that
huge.
is. And so that's why I wanted to highlight that in a chapter in my book.
Well, the avoidance of expense, enormous cleanup expense, other litigation expense from liability, because of a good safety program, is priceless.
Look,
We're
when we
talking.
sold Anaheim, my home division closed, it sold for millions and millions of dollars, and there was no hazardous waste there.
Yeah,
There was no radioactive. All the buildings that had radioactive materials were off our radioactive license. So just those years and years and years of reliable service, it paid off big time when they had to sell that site.
we are talking to Marc Axelrod, the author of The Flame Bucket: Adventures in Workplace Safety. You might think adventures and workplace safety don't go together, but you'd be wrong. They absolutely do. Marc Axelrod, the beryllium Batman. That is the name I've come up with. People may like it, they may dislike it. I don't care. I'm using it. Uh, and now, a word from our sponsors.
Are you a business owner? Are you losing sleep because you feel your partner isn't carrying their weight, or because you no longer share the same vision or values? Are you no longer comfortable going into your own office? Are you walking on eggshells in the company you built? This is Chris Daniels, founding partner of Parker Daniels Keyboard LLC, a premier litigation law firm headquartered in downtown Minneapolis. For more than 30 years, I've specialized in business litigation and have helped hundreds of business owners resolve troubling business disputes. As a former certified public accountant, I get to the heart of the dispute, including financial issues. Business divorce can be messy, time-consuming, and costly, but doing nothing can cost you a lot more. Not just money, but emotionally, physically, and in your personal life. If you and your business partner no longer see eye to eye, and you're eager to take a proactive approach and make a change, please call me at 612-355-4100 and schedule a consultation. Or visit our website at www.parkerdk.com.
The show today brought to you by Parker Daniels Keyboards, premier litigation law firm, downtown Minneapolis. Okay, so Marc, we've talked a little bit about, school, you come out, you got Rockwell, they get purchased by Boeing, right? I think, and you were there. How many years Rockwell and Boeing total?
29 years. And
Yeah,
I'm very proud of that because that whole time, the Cold War ended, the defense industry contracted, companies got together, there were mergers, a lot of programs disappeared, people laid off. I maintained my employment there for 29 years. So very,
wow,
very proud
amazing,
of that. These
fabulous,
days, the gig economy, people are, this way, that way.
right?
So
Right? And why'd you leave?
I left because one thing, I made my retirement number. They still had a retirement system. They Boeing honored it, the original Rockwell retirement system that I hired onto,
Beautiful.
and still sending me checks every month. So I
Good.
like that. And the other reason was that my site closed. Anaheim closed. I had to
Oh
go
yeah.
to another Boeing site. We had a very strong, robust safety culture at Anaheim, and I moved to another site, and I'm thinking, well, gee, I'm just same job, same, just moving to a different desk,
Yeah.
and it didn't turn out to be that way. The new site that I moved to, the safety culture uh, just was not up to the standards that we had built in our previous site in Anaheim.
How'd you deal with that? I mean, here you are, a safety guy at the new site. You're the new guy, but you know that they're not doing it the way that the company should expect them to do it.
Well, it took a while. You see signs, you have conversations, you're out, you don't do safety at your desk, you're out with the employees, you're walking around, you're visiting different areas, and they tell you, hey, they would ask me, who are you? I'd say, oh, I'm a safety guy. He goes, they would ask me, where is your Kleenex? I'd go, Kleenex, what do I need Kleenex for? He says, well, you safety guys here, that's all you do is dry our tears. You never do anything. So
Yeah.
there's a guy with tools on the front line.
Yeah.
He knows, he's been there for years and years. He knows what his lived experience.
He's
He's
only
telling me
got
this.
9 fingers because one of them got chopped off at work. Yeah. And here you go. You go around and they think you do nothing.
That was one of my great moments when I was still at Rockwell. I went to a retirement party for one of the machinists, and he was there for a long while. He was a press operator, and he gets his retirement and he goes, look at this. I can still pick my nose and count my money. And so I thought that was the whole game right there.
You can get stories like this right out of the book, which we'll talk about where you can get it momentarily. But yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, the safety guy probably is someone who's an annoyance when he comes around for some people because they go, oh, I got to go through all these steps when I can just go to step 10. Without doing the other 9. No, you can't when you've got systems in place. So when you decided to leave, was that a difficult decision? I mean, after that many years, even though you were transferred to a new location, it's still got to be difficult.
It was difficult, but I had a fraught situation there. There was a operation that I thought was definitely not aligned with Cal OSHA, our local regulations. Right. And at Anaheim, I just say, oh, hey, I'm here to help you. You can't do it this way. We got to do it, another way. We can fix it. Finding things and fixing things was what my job was. And at my new site, for some reason, it was like, oh, you know what? We don't want to hear about it. It hasn't blown up yet. So, that was the same thing they told the Challenger, the rocket engineers. Hey, we've had 24 launches with this O-ring. There hasn't been any problems.
Yeah.
And you can't do safety that way. Trial and error learning, very important in safety. But there are some things that are too expensive to learn that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm hopeful that people who read my book will understand that that's the difference when you have some kind of situations you don't want to learn by trial and error. Let me just, this was something I kept on my bulletin board. At Rockwell, in the valley, there was an explosion. 2 people died.
Says criminal probe urged after Rockwell blast.
Right.
And you were at Rockwell at the time?
I was at Rockwell when that happened. It was a different site. But one of the managers that worked there came to, eventually work over on my site. And so I learned that story. And so here, it's a rocket dyne. They make rocket engines. They're using energy chemicals, rocket propellants. They had something blow up. It killed 2 people. But it turned out they were firing this material so they didn't have to dispose of it as hazardous waste. It wasn't really a work operation. It was a legal waste operation. And so not only was OSHA there, EPA was there 50 FBI agents came, took all their computers, all their files,
Yeah.
and one mistake.
Yeah.
Who knows what it was? The humidity was too low.
Yeah.
They weren't, there was a static spark. Who knows what
He
it
could have
was?
closed down the
And
whole. He could have
that one,
closed down the whole company.
that one incident
Yeah.
jeopardized the whole company. And so that sort of situation is always in the back of my head. And I'm looking at, some of these operations and, what's the worst that can happen? And then you start to think and you go, you know what? I don't want that to happen. And I don't want to be the guy that knew about it and didn't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah. A key thesis of the flame bucket is credibility, morality, a foundation of values that have to rise above corporate America, have to rise above the profit motive. And Marc Axelrod lived it, didn't just talk it, lived it.
I think you're exaggerating to fit the facts there, Andrew.
That's what we do. What do you?
That's what we do.
That's why I like that paragraph or chapter that I told you about. All right, so you leave Boeing and Rockwell. What do you? That's it? You're going to retire?
No, hey, I worked for Kaiser Permanente. So I got, that was war fighting, all the machines we built there. Here I get into healing, into health. Kaiser Permanente, medical care is very dangerous too. And for the employees, and that 1 out of every 10 patients that goes to the hospital, something happens to them there that's not good, that wasn't there when they arrived there. And so patient safety is a big deal there. And so as safety person in healthcare, I was, charged of the environment, not the clinical things, but I would sit on the environment of care committee. You had security, housekeeping, the machinery that they have to keep up, the facilities that they have to keep running. And
did you deal with like HVAC systems in the surgery rooms, that sort of thing?
Yes, I did. In fact, the state of California asked me to lecture about that when we were having all these, problems with infectious diseases. And I wasn't there when we had our big pandemic, but I was there for some scares and people were concerned. And where are you going to go? You go to the hospital. You want to keep it functioning. In Katrina, for that hurricane, it's terrible. Patients were abandoned. I mean, they had no power. They had, what could you do? Everything was flooded. But you can't just abandon your patients. And so the emergency program for healthcare, that was also part of my job responsibilities.
Wow, amazing. And in the flame bucket, adventures in workplace safety, there is story upon story, one more interesting than the next, about something you wouldn't pick up and read maybe in a normal day. I'm sure, but it is absolutely fascinating, interesting, and beautiful the way it is laid out. So how long were you at Kaiser?
I was at Kaiser almost 4 years. From Kaiser, I stopped at UCLA. I was a lecturer. The kids called me professor, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm a professor now. So I was a professor of industrial hygiene, of safety. I taught a radiation class and all at the graduate level. And so that was very fulfilling there.
Yeah, that must have been good. I gotta be honest. Normally I would say, I don't know if that's a course, but if you were teaching it, I think I would have signed up for it. I would have gone after it, 3,000 level course. I don't know anything about safety, but it would have been a fun class. I can tell you that. So you're at UCLA, but you end up at the city of Beverly Hills.
Yes, they
How
had
does that happen?
So they had an opening there. And when I was working at Boeing and Kaiser, I was commuting on the freeway 40 miles each way. That's life here in Southern California.
Yeah.
You can't always be living right next to where you're working. And here, Beverly Hills is like 5 minutes. It's down the block.
Yeah.
And I thought, this would be great. And plus, they wanted residents to work for the city. They didn't have very many because not very many people could afford to live here and still work at the city. But fortunately, we bought our house now, over 30 years ago when it was
Oh, it's got to be more than that, Mark.
still sort of affordable. And so that was a
Where
plus for
were
the
you?
city.
Were you in Beverly Hills when I came out there to visit UCLA, where I might have gone to college? Of course, I really wanted to go to Stanford. I didn't want to go to UCLA and be next to my cousin. I wanted to go to Stanford, but I didn't quite get in at Stanford, but I did get in at UCLA, and I almost went to UCLA. And I came out to visit it in like 1978. Were you living in Beverly Hills then? I don't think so. Maybe
No, I didn't move to Beverly Hills to 1993. In
93. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
But
it's
I think I was
33 years
I was
ago.
living in Westwood. I was living right next to
Yeah,
UCLA.
yeah, in Westwood. That's where it was.
Yeah.
Where I came, and we did a little tour. We went to the La Brea tar pits on that, or maybe it was Neil. Was that Neil or you? It was. Yeah,
I love the La Brea tar pits.
I know, it was fabulous. I mean, you go there, it's where they claim all the dinosaurs sunk into the quicksand and disappeared. Yeah, it was fascinating. I should have known then that you would get into, the flame bucket and safety. So you're, it's amazing. So you go to work for the city of Beverly. So what do you do there? And how did it work out day to day?
Well, it was interesting. So I live in the city, so I got to be backstage. So they have a fire department there. So that was interesting. I never had to work safety with fire department. I mean, you can't do that without being safety.
Right?
They had a police department there.
Yeah.
And fire. And I mean, we're having election right now, and all the candidates are, safety for the residents, the fire department, the police
Yeah.
department. They love. I was backstage and seeing, talking to the fire department. What are your safety problems here, guys?
Yeah.
I was talking to the police department. What are your safety problems? And also to work to the public works department. They kept the streets safe, the signals safe, collect the trash, provide the water. So there's a lot going on backstage of the city. I found it very interesting. And there was a lot of risk and a lot of ways I saw I could help them, stay safe, protect people.
So what was your position, and who did you report to?
When I hired in, I reported to the risk manager. I was in the risk management department.
Okay. The risk manager, huh? And I bet he just covered safety A to Z, didn't let anything get by to make sure safety was top drawer.
In city government, the main thing with the risk is just making sure you have good insurance.
Yeah.
That was.
Well, it's not only that, it's also making sure you keep your job. So you keep your head down below the water level so that no one can shoot it off.
It's a very political environment. I've seen some things where if something goes wrong and the first thing is not how to fix it, it's like who to blame. Who do we, whose heads gets chopped off, right?
Yeah. No, there's no question about it. And it's usually the guys at that risk manager level that are the most, they've gotten really good at ducking, and avoiding the bullets. And that's why they've been there for 30 years doing nothing. I don't know that about the city of Beverly Hills guy. He could have been the greatest guy ever.
He was a good guy. He ran a good department. And unfortunately, in the middle of my work experience there, he left. And so things changed.
Well, then you had somebody come in new to that position, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that wasn't so good, or?
Yeah, and it was we were reorganized, and there was a different organization. And at the same time, one of my most fraught kind of projects came up, and that was with our drivers of commercial vehicles.
Yeah, describe that a little bit. That's kind of in the news a little bit nowadays. Anybody can get a CDL.
Yeah, well, you drive a commercial vehicle, you have to be enrolled in a drug and alcohol program. I mean, just look. I mean, driving vehicles is one of the most dangerous things on our highways. You see these big trucks rolling around, commercial vehicles. You want to make sure that people there are, nothing's affecting them and being able to operate their vehicle safely. And so at the city, an audit found that a significant number of them were never enrolled in this program. For years, they found out about it, and nothing happened. But it was on my job description, that commercial driver safety program. It was on my job description, even though I wasn't the person that held that program in their hands. So they gave it to me many, many months after they discovered this program. And I felt a little nervous, having all these drivers unenrolled, and sort of sent an email, hey, you can't drive till you get a clearance to pass your drug and alcohol test, it's just what the regulation says.
That's
I'm not making
basic.
anything up.
It's basic.
Yeah. And
So how does that create a problem for you?
They were sort of very embarrassed, but I did get their attention. We did fix the problem. Thank you very much, Mark. You did a good work. It was it was a sprint to get all the training and everything in place, and the new contracts to have a safe program for the commercial drivers. Got a little pat in the back. And then the next day it was like, oh, we don't need you anymore. We reorganized.
Yeah. Then the
Bye-bye.
retribution began. Yeah. No, I've done decades of public sector employment work.
Oh, wow.
Often,
so you know about it.
I know about it. I know a lot about it. Often representing the employer, the public sector agency, entity, municipality, but also representing the individual. We do both. I've got a case now against the Minneapolis public schools. So I'm continuing to do that kind of work, and much more so on the side of the employee, to protect people from being unfairly treated, unfairly terminated. Their what we call economic capital punishment is discharge. And so I know from what you speak, and it is it's a difficult environment when you ruffle feathers, and when you are a safety person of moral fiber, you will ruffle feathers if you're doing your job well, I would assume. Talking to Marc Axelrod, the author of The Flame Bucket, Adventures in Workplace Safety. It reads like a novel, but it isn't, believe it or not. And once you read it, you'll be shaking your head, but you're going to love reading it. Story of safety, courage, career-defining decisions, all in The Flame Bucket. It's something you got to pick up. And where is it, Mark? It's on Amazon for sure.
You can get it on Amazon, and also in the Book Baby bookstore. That's my publisher, Book Baby. So it's
Oh,
available
cool.
there.
What is that?
And
Bookbaby.com, and you
it's
can
Book
pick it up.
Baby. You can find it, Book Baby bookstore.
Good.
And I Googled myself and the title, and you can find it pretty easy
M-
that way.
Marc Axelrod with a C, M-A-R-C, Axelrod, A-X-E-L-R-O-D. Just remember the A-X, my uncle, Axe, right? Mark's dad.
That's
What a
right.
great guy. One of the greats. Also played baseball and was a really good baseball player,
Yes.
as I
Yes.
recall when he was younger.
Yes.
No question. Axe. So you remember it. Axe. A-X-E-L-R-O-D. The Flame Bucket Adventures in Workplace Safety. Mark, cuz, great to see you. I loved it. I enjoyed it, as I knew I would, and I wish you all the best with your first book here. And I say first because I hope there are more following. It's just a fantastic read, The Flame Bucket, Marc Axelrod.
Well, thank you, Andrew. And let me tell you, you do good work. I'm very proud of my cousin in Minnesota. I'm proud of your show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I got to get out to LA. I'm going to come. I'm going to try to avoid earthquake season, and I'm going to try to avoid when I'm there the various homeless issues and encampments. And I'm going to try to enjoy the traffic. But beyond that, the sunshine and the beautiful place you have in Beverly Hills. I tried to describe it to someone the other day as I was talking about you coming on the show, and it's kind of like your block I'm talking about, which is just this idyllic, beautiful block of house to house to house, and the bluebirds are chirping in the orange trees, sort of thing. I described it as Mayberry RFD, but a little bit different.
No,
I don't know.
yeah, we live in the flats, and people don't realize Beverly Hills, 50% of the people here are renting or renting apartments.
Right,
They
right.
go to work like everybody else. It's pretty much, it gets a lot of attention for the glamour and glitz, but in a lot of ways, it's just a regular neighborhood. All my friends, I got all my friends from Little League and from soccer and just community things, just like any place else.
Well, it is. When I say idyllic, that is the perfect word, because it is beautiful in that in that sense of neighborhood community as well. It really is. So I always enjoy coming to visit you. I've got to get back out there. I'll tell you all that is in this book, The Flame Bucket, and I know Mark would say the same. Probably wouldn't be certainly wouldn't be the same, but wouldn't maybe exist at all, but for your beautiful wife. And I want you to say hello to for me, Betsy. The last time I think I stayed there, I knocked into one of your chandeliers and I jostled it all. Oh God, it wasn't good. So say hi for me, and great to see you, and thanks for being on.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Alyssa.
For more Smart Plane Talk, go to theandrewparkershow.com. Learn about all of your listening and viewing options. And remember, all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope. This episode of The Andrew Parker Show is sponsored by Parker Daniels Keyboard. Mark Twain once quipped, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes." When you are lied about and it spreads, the resulting mayhem and destruction can be, and often is, disastrous. Hi, this is Andrew Parker, co-founder of the Parker Daniels Keyboard Law Firm. I recently handled a high-profile defamation lawsuit on behalf of a luxury home real estate agent whose business was decimated by falsehoods spread about him. After nearly 2 years of litigation and 2 weeks of trial, the jury came back with a verdict of more than $2 million for our client. Parker Daniels Keyboard. We litigate cases, we try cases, and we win cases. With a record of excellence in achieving extraordinary results, Parker Daniels Keyboard lawyers have consistently won huge verdicts for its clients in the areas of defamation, civil rights violations, regulatory battles, and intellectual property theft. For wise counsel and winning results, contact us at Parker Daniels Keyboard, premier law firm in downtown Minneapolis.